Hello and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's nice and early live Zoo to You. My name is Katie. I'm one of the educators here at Stone Zoo, and today I'm so excited to be joining you live from our Mexican gray wolf habitat here at Stone Zoo so we can celebrate Wolf Awareness Week, which runs this October 18th to 24th this week. If you have any questions about the Mexican gray wolves during our chat, please feel free to ask them and we'll do our best to answer them during our video. Now, our chat today, I'm first going to talk a little bit about the Mexican gray wolves we have here at Stone Zoo, and then I'm going to be taking you on a little bit of a journey over the last few hundred years to talk about how the Mexican gray wolf's conservation status has changed over time and what current recovery efforts we have in place to help bring this species back from the brink of extinction. Now, the wolves may not always be visible at all times, and that is because their habitat here at the zoo is really large and our windows are a little foggy this morning. So we're going to do our best to hopefully see some of our wolves here. Now, we have 6 Mexican gray wolves here at Stone Zoo, and they came to us from the Wolf Conservation Center in New York this spring. So they're pretty much brand new to us here at Stone Zoo. They are 6 brothers, and they are all named after female conservationists. So we have Beatty, Carson, Craighead, Goodall, Leck, and Mittermeier here, and they are 2.5 years old. In human care at zoos, Mexican gray wolves can live up to 15, possibly even 16 years, but in their natural habitat, they can really only live up to 11 years. They are native to the southwestern United States into Mexico, and they're found in states in the U.S. like Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico. And in Mexico, they're found in the Pueblan region and Chihuahua and Sonora. They weigh between 50 and 80 pounds, and they're actually the smallest and most southern occurring subspecies of wolf in North America, which is really interesting. So they're roughly the size of a German Shepherd, to give you a little bit of perspective there. And here at the zoo, they eat a diet consisting of raw ground meat. They also get exotic canine chow, which is kind of like a dog food for large canines here at the zoo. And they'll occasionally get things like frozen mice as well. And in their natural range, they're going to be eating animals like mule deer, elk, possibly javelinas, and occasionally some livestock as well. And speaking of livestock, that kind of ties into the wolf's persecution here in North America. So before colonizers came to North America, there were thousands of Mexican gray wolves that lived in balance with their ecosystem, the animals in it, and the native people. But once colonizers came, we started to see the persecution against large predators. So the first documented wolf bounty was actually in 1630. And by the early 1900s, there were lots of anti-predator campaigns in the United States. And that's because people viewed large predators as something threatening to them, their families, and their livestock, which is a source of income. So that's when we really started to see gray wolf and Mexican gray wolf numbers plummet. By the 1970s, there were really only a handful of Mexican gray wolves left in the wild. So in 1976, they were placed on the endangered species list, and then we start moving into the recovery of this critically endangered species. So by the late 1970s, the United States and Mexico actually made a joint program to help save this species from extinction. And by 1979, the Mexican gray wolf recovery program was in full swing. And this recovery program is really interesting because it involves lots of different organizations all across the United States and Mexico, all coming together to help save this species. So those include organizations like the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, which is a third-party organization that accredits zoos and aquariums across the country. We are actually accredited by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. This also includes the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Arizona Fish and Game Department, and the White Mountain Apache tribe in Arizona. So lots of different people coming together to help save this species. And what's really exciting is that even though these wolves were down to just a few individuals, by bringing them into human care, breeding them, and then re-releasing them into the wild, we actually saw the first 11 wolves go back into the Blue Range Wolf Recovery Area in 1998. So those were the first wolves released, and that's all done through the Mexican gray wolf species survival plan, and that's actually something that we participate in here at Zoo New England. And there's over 50 different facilities that are participating in this SSP to help breed Mexican gray wolves and save them from extinction. And what's really exciting, we saw 11 wolves go back into the wild in 1998. As of 2019, so just last year, there were over 163 Mexican gray wolves living in the wild. So we're seeing more and more, they're starting to breed. So they are an endangered species, but we are seeing a slow recovery, which is really, really exciting. And one thing that is really interesting is that the Blue Range Wolf Recovery Area in Arizona actually is right adjacent to the White Mountain Apache tribe's land. And they have 1.6 million acres of pretty much undeveloped land with extensive ponderosa pine forests, which is a preferred habitat of Mexican gray wolves because of the abundance of prey, water, and cover. So this land that the White Mountain Apache tribe has, they're starting to see a few individuals come on over from the wolf recovery area and to use that land. And this could kind of in the future serve as a bridge, connecting that to the Grand Canyon ecoregion. So we might even see in the future more and more wolves throughout the Southwest, kind of using these undeveloped habitats, which is really exciting because habitat destruction is something that is causing many species to become endangered or extinct. So it's exciting to see these large patches of undeveloped habitat kind of being connected so the wolves will have a safe area to cross. The White Mountain Apache tribe does a lot of conservation work with Mexican gray wolves. They have an extensive youth program where youth can go out and learn how to do aerial counts of Mexican gray wolves, how to track them, and how to do different counts and things like that. And they're also using that land to help conserve lots of other endangered species that are found on it, including the Apache trout, willow flycatchers, and the Mexican spotted owl. So one thing that I find really fascinating about the Mexican gray wolf story is that we're not just helping to conserve one species, they're all connected, and by conserving the ecosystem that they're found in and their habitat, we're actually helping to save lots of different endangered species. Now I think we're going to move to answer some questions.
Sure. So can you remind us what are their names again?
So their names are Beatty, Carson, Craighead, Goodall, Leck, and Mittermeier, and they are all named after female conservationists. So Beatty is named after Molly Beatty, who was the first female head of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Carson is named after Rachel Carson, who wrote the very famous book Silent Spring. Craighead is named after Jean Craighead, who was a famous wildlife author. Goodall is named after Jane Goodall, who is probably one of the most well-known female conservationists, and she was the first to study chimpanzees in the wild. And Lek is named after a conservationist in Thailand who helps to save Asian elephants. And Mittermeier is named after a female conservationist out of Mexico who uses photography as a way of connecting conservation and a way of getting those photos out there for people to see.
Rachel wanted to know how old are they, and then also if you could remind us what their lifespan is.
So our wolves here at Stone Zoo are 2.5 years old, and their lifespan in human care is 15 to 16 years, while in their natural habitat it's really only up to 11 years.
All right, and Vanessa wants to know what time are they the most active? Maybe for somebody coming to the zoo who wants to catch a glimpse of our wolves?
That's a really good question, Vanessa. So they are the most active in the morning. So if you're able to get here to the zoo on like an earlier time, you'll have a better chance of seeing them active. And like a lot of animals, they're more active when it's a little bit cooler out. So oftentimes if you come to the zoo in the summer, especially midday, a lot of animals are sleepy, just like we get really sleepy. So nice, cool fall mornings are my favorite time to come up and see our wolves because they're usually really, really active. So that would be my recommendation.
Right. And can you remind us, where do they live in the wild?
Yes, so they live in the southwestern United States, so Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, and they live down into Mexico.
And how many are left in the wild right now?
There are 163 Mexican gray wolves in the wild right now, and that might not seem like many, it isn't, but considering the fact that there were just a handful of them, 50 years ago, we're seeing more and more out there, which is really exciting. And we are celebrating Wolf Awareness Week all week here at the zoo, so please come by and check out our wolves. We do have lots of signs where you can learn more about the female conservationists they're named after as well. All right, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Please feel free to stop by the Stone Zoo and say hello to our wolf pack in person. Thanks for tuning in.